I gave them shit for not having one.
Okay, getting ready?
Oh, see that, that was kind of hate
Application still.
I got it.
You all approve those. And so we can pass the official.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
I mean, try to make sure.
I heard it was,
That's why we.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and call the Skipta Regional Planning Council July 9th, 2024 meeting to order. Just for everybody's knowledge, this meeting is being live streamed, and we do have some online attendees, so try to make sure you speak up. Our first item on the agenda is to do roll calls. So Rachel, if you'll proceed.
Okay, Honorable Jerry Summers. Mr. Charlie Spalding. Mr. Keith Griffey. Honorable Scott Bates.
Here.
Honorable Jason Stanley. Mr. Mike Ray. Mr. Tony Parrott. Mr. Mike King. Honorable David Vogel.
Jim Urban here and Ryan Fisher for David Vogel.
Okay, you were next on my call list,
Mike, sir.
Mr. Urban. But-
oh, yeah, and Mike Ray just joined.
Oh, he just, okay, perfect. Mr. Brian Fogel. Honorable Dan Ison. Mr. Ryan Libkey,
Here.
Mr. Lawrence Blackaby. Honorable Scott Travis. Ms. Julie Sweezy. Honorable John Ogburn.
Here.
Diana Arnold. That's it. Is that?
Yeah, we have 4 counties represented. We have actually 5.
And Brandon Davis is probably
Okay.
replacing Emily Lou.
Right.
If we want to make that change.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just correct, we have 5 counties represented, so we've got a quorum. Our next item of business is our minutes from our April 9th meeting. You should have received those in your packet with the meeting invite. And if you've reviewed those and have any questions, whatever, please ask. If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Judge Bates,
Second.
second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The minutes from April 9th, 2004 are approved. 2024, I could say. All right, so our next item of business is we have Brian Davis and Caitlin Deaver
Yes.
with Louisville Metro here to present the new Floyd's Fork regulations. So Brian, you and your team, it's all yours.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk about probably the longest overlay district name I've ever been a part of, the Floyd's Fork Special Zoning Overlay District. This is a project that we have been working on for a while now. Depending on who you ask, anywhere from 2 to 45 years. And so we're really excited to finally have these things adopted. And so we just wanted to take a couple minutes here to talk about the project and some of the regulations that have been adopted. As Ryan stated, I'm Brian Davis, I'm the interim director for the Louisville Metro Office of Planning. And then joined this morning by Katie Deaver and Jeff Frank, and I'll let them introduce themselves here when we get to their portions of the presentation. So here today, so this is just a map that shows the entire Salt River watershed. And so the part that, of course, that we're most concerned about today is the Floyd's Fork portion. I forgot, radio pointers don't work on TVs. Is the Floyd's Fork portion there, which is, as you can see, on the northern part of the watershed. And we felt it was appropriate to come and speak to you all today about these regulations, again, because, you know, while we have a part of the Floyd's Fork, it definitely covers a lot of the counties for local officials who are here today. And so we just wanted to share what we're doing along our part of Floyd's Fork. And then, you know, just kind of start the conversation and discussion about what you all may be doing in your portions of the community as well. As far as background goes, planning for Floyd's Fork began after the adoption of the 1979 comprehensive plan. So several comprehensive plans ago for Louisville Metro, Louisville and Jefferson County is when they first kind of identified the importance of Floyd's Fork and really identifying a need to do some preservation within the streams corridor. In 1980, there was a document entitled the Comprehensive Plan Implementation, Environmental and Essential Services Constraints. And what that study did was recommended rezoning Floyd's Fork to only allow what they called very low intensity uses. In 1981, the Floyd's Fork Management Plan was created. And this was like really the first in-depth look at the corridor and what could be done in order to help preserve the scenic resources as well as the environmental parts of the stream. Fast forward to 1993, it was at that time when we finally had the official creation of the Floyd's Fork Development Review Overlay Guidelines, which had an accompanying area-wide rezoning. So the map that you see on the right side of the screen, all the green that you see, kind of like in the southern portion of the corridor, all of that was rezoned to RR, which in Louisville Metro, that's our kind of like our agricultural district, has a minimum lot size of 5 acres. And so really did a major downzoning of the parcels there, kind of south of I-64 is about the dividing line. So the Floyd's Fork DRO within the Louisville metro area is comprised of nearly 2,500 properties and totals over 13,000 acres of land, which if you put it in terms of like square miles, a little over 20 square miles, which is bigger than the city of Frankfort when you think about kind of putting it in the scale of how large this corridor is. Of that 13,000 acres, about 68% is zoned RR. So the large residential district that we talked about, nearly 9,000 acres are zoned that. But what we have seen over the years is that kind of the area to the north of is still R4, which is our most common zoning district, 9,000 square foot lots whenever you have sewers. And so that area is still kind of development prone, if you would. So back in the late 2010s, there was a study that was conducted called the South Floyd's Fork Vision Plan. That was adopted by Metro Council in August of 2020. One of the recommendations in that was to analyze and revise the existing Floyd's Fork DRO in its current state and eliminate redundancies, provide clear standards, and to reflect current needs and conditions. Because one of the problems that we had with the Floyd's Fork DRO guidelines is that they were just that, they were guidelines, they weren't regulations. And so throughout the language in the DRO guidelines, you had a lot of shoulds and not a lot of shalls. And so it was real hard to kind of, ask people to do things when you didn't really have the regulatory teeth that you needed in order to do proper preservation within the corridor. And so that was one of the things that really we set out to do after Metro Council approved an ordinance in 2022, asking us to take a look at that chapter 3, and again, giving it some regulatory teeth. To say that we had some, public input is an understatement. We had a lot of public meetings, and I won't go over everything, but basically, starting in May of 2023, our office began to reach out and work with the community, both people who lived in Floyd's Fork, people who are looking to potentially develop in Floyd's Fork, local officials. We tried to gather everybody and get as much input on this process as we could. And so the first draft was released in July of 2023. We had a series of meetings to talk about the first draft. The second draft was released in November 2023. Planning committee said, hey, it'd be great if you could have some more public input on that. So we did that in December of 2023, released a third draft, took it to planning commission in January of this year. And at the planning commission meeting, they said, hey, it'd be great if you get some more input from the public, which was kind of like, okay, sure, whatever. So what we did with the second part is we actually reached out to the interested parties and asked them to submit their red line versions of that draft 3. And then what we did is we wound up having 3 different drafts. which were the red draft, the blue draft, and the green draft, which I forgot to bring, but we kept them on colored paper that way to help keep them sorted. And so we conducted a series of meetings throughout February, where we went line by line through each one of those drafts. And whoever made a recommendation, we let them say why they liked it. If someone didn't like it, we said, well, why don't you like it? And then, us as staff kind of acted as like the judge and jury on what was gonna go in that final draft, or not. So finally, on, March 21st, the planning commission conducted a public hearing, made a recommendation on that, on that revised third draft, to Metro Council. Metro Council made a few tweaks, but ultimately they did wind up, adopting it on May 16th of 2024. So, it's 1 year from really the first public meeting, but 2 years from that adoption of the Metro Council resolution, asking us to take a look at it. And then, like I said, 40 some odd years from when it was first identified in the comp plan before we finally have what I'll call regulations in place. So I'm gonna turn it over to Katie now, and Katie's gonna talk about some of the highlights of the draft regulation that we have.
So I'm Katie Deaver. I'm a planner one with the Louisville Metro Office of Planning. I'm gonna cover some of the highlights of the newly adopted Floyd's Fork regulations. So we divided land uses into 3 different categories. We have tier 1 regulated activities, which require approval by the planning director or designee. Basically means that it's staff approval through our office. Tier 2 regulated activities require approval by the planning commission or its designee, meaning it requires a public hearing. And then the third category is if it's exempt, like if it's agricultural use or a community facility review or properties that are subject to the Parklands and Floyd's Fork master plan. Here are some examples of those tier 1 and tier 2 regulated activities. So for tier 1, we have less than a 50% expansion to existing residential structures, clearing of a tree area greater than 5,000 square feet, certain types of grading and excavation for non-agricultural uses, construction of accessory structures like garages or pole barns or accessory dwelling units, construction of a street that serves 1 dwelling unit or a single family structure that isn't already exempt from review. But tier 2 that requires a public hearing is when you're clearing large treed areas greater than 5,000 square feet for development, roadways and parking lots that serve more than 1 dwelling unit, utility construction, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing that we were able to accomplish through these regulations was we significantly increased the buffers for our waterways, particularly Floyd's Fork. So it's 200 feet on either side of the fork, comprised of a stream side zone, 150 feet, and an outer zone with 50 feet that have certain permitted uses. And the stream side zone specifically for Floyd's Fork is almost untouchable. We didn't want any disturbance in that area. And then for perennial streams, it's a 125-foot buffer comprised of 3 different zones, a 50-foot stream side, a 50-foot middle, and a 25-foot outer, again, with certain permitted uses in each zone as appropriate, and then a 25-foot buffer for intermittent streams. We also have increased buffering and setbacks along designated scenic corridors to maintain the rural character of Floyd's Fork. Staff had suggested a maximum impervious surface percentage of 50%, and with Metro Council's amendments, it's 40%. I would like to note that of that 40% maximum impervious surface, no more than 30% of that could be covering the local regulatory floodplain. We also have lighting standards that are modeled after the Dark Sky International Association standards to combat lighting pollution. And then for certain waiver requests, we do require an independent environmental assessment in addition to their justification for needing relief from the requirement. In terms of residential development, all major subdivisions in R4 and R5 zoning districts, which is the most commonly utilized zoning district for residential subdivisions, we required either tracts of 5 acres or more, conservation subdivision regulations, our mixed residential development incentive, or development potential transfer, which is really for sites that have steep slopes. And within all of them, we required 30% of the site designated as common open space. So this was just to prevent this kind of standard residential development that has higher impervious surface percentages. In terms of multifamily residential development with 10 or more dwelling units, again, also held to that 30% open space requirement. Do you have any questions for us at this point in the presentation? If not.
All right, if not, we're gonna turn it over to Jeff now.
Yeah.
Jeff was one of the community members that we worked with exhaustively almost in terms of trying to learn more about the Floyd's Fork, its importance He spent a number of years on there. He knows Floyd Fork like the back of his hand. And so he's just gonna kind of get into, some of the sciencey stuff, I'll call it. That talks about some of the reasons why, we felt it was so important to develop these regulations. So Jack, turn it over to you, man.
Sue, thanks, everybody. I'd like to welcome John Hodgson, Representative Hodgson. Who's Floyd Fork's part of his area review, and Gary Brew, who lives in Fisherville on the Fork and actually farms on the Fork down at Cedar Creek, where Cedar Creek is. So, little bit of background on me. About 30 years ago, when Dr. Steve Henry had 2 farms, I came up to him and said, "Who's your property manager?" He dropped him like a hot potato. And that became my involvement with the Future Fund. They became the land acquisition agent, essentially, on Floyd's Fork, largely in Jefferson County originally. That assembled the core of the holdings of what became the Parklands. So over 30 years, I've had the pleasure of getting to know really each of those farms. When they had a farm name tied to a family, and watched that transition into apartments at Floyd's Fork. When Brian asked me, I thought, Kip, to good grief, I haven't been in here forever. It's a regional planning agency. He gave me carte blanche, which is a dangerous thing. Usually I was kind of reticent. But what I thought I'd do is try to share what regional planning has been going on and some of the methodology of what are the concerns of the Friends of Floyd's Fork? How are we going to keep this asset, Floyd's Fork, the Parklands, healthy enough to continue to be the amenity and the draw that it is today? So with that, the next slide, please. Oh, I've got a clicker.
Yeah, I do backwards.
It's impressive. All right. So lasers don't work on screens, but the DRO in Jefferson County is on the main stem of Floyd's Fork. And it's about 13,000 acres. The southeast portion of Jefferson County, 45,000 acres, is what Brian alluded to and Katie did for this South Floyd's Fork area study, which is another regional planning initiative on Floyd's Fork. So next slide. Just some perspective, 6 counties, 2 of which are barely touched, but Golden, Shelton, Jefferson, border, the big ones, Henry and Spencer have little pieces. But we're 62 miles on the main stem, about 130,000 acre watershed. And the biggest point I can make to a regional planning body is we've got to start adopting regional watershed wide mindsets to save this resource. We have issues with what's coming into the county today. And how do we get back together on a page that leads us to the outcome that we want? Over 78,000, almost 80,000 of that 130,000 acres are in Jefferson County. So it's a big part of our county. 45,000 again in the area study. That called for a conservation form district with low impact development standards. That was a new thing in the land use code and a big deal. And while it was adopted 2020, we get to see those regs because these are very busy people, among other things. So with that, when you look at the fork today, the water quality goes, depending on where you are, what time of year, from excellent to terrible. But on the main stem, this stream is under a lot of stress. It's at or near a tipping point on some of these tributaries. And there's some background on where we're at. Division of Waters term for Floyd's Fork, it's effluent dominated. It means effluent and treated wastewater controls the chemistry and the biology of that stream. How dominated? January 24th, it was running 3.1 MGD in Fisherville. The Floyd's Fork wastewater plant above it runs 3.5 MGD average on a day. It's a zero flow stream. So the analogy I make when we start thinking about how do we keep this stream healthy is we've got to be really careful about the input. If you turn off your pool pump and dump in fertilizer, you're going to get a lot of algal. Algal growth at night is going to drive dissolved oxygen crashes. 60% of the mussel species in Floyd's Fork are gone. The ones that are left don't have a flash jaw. Tipping point stuff. So the Friends Floyd's Fork's a small advocacy group. We think or hope we try to get a rational growth strategy together for how we move forward with this resource. This is the Division of Water slide I borrowed, but it's effluent dominated, which means most of the flow, low flow is treated wastewater. Most of Floyd's Fork, all Floyd's Fork in Jefferson County is under stormwater management permit. And there's some compliance challenges that present with that. Back in the 90s, Floyd's Fork, because of its impairments, landed on the 303D list. That's an impaired stream. You're required by Congress to go through a process that includes this acronym TMDL. For a minute, to figure out how do you get the stream back to where it's not on that list. But forever, 3 decades, Floyd's Fork, pieces of it have been on that list. Back in 2010, I tried to get Dr. Henry here, but he was previously engaged. Future Fund, the friend, was not available then, but Frank wrote a letter to the EPA, Division of Water, and MSD, reminding them, look, you've got an obligation under the Clean Water Act to do this TMDL, and think of it as a diet for nutrients. There's also a TMDL that was done for pathogens. All right, that's been updated recently. Despite the updated language, we still have pathogen excursions routinely in Floyd's Fork, particularly in wet weather. The nutrient TMDL was never finished. Fired up right after the notice of intent letter in 2010, $1 million study, Tetra Tech, and the whole process ground to a halt with the change of administration in Frankfurt. I would submit about 2014. You can draw your own inferences there. 2018, several of us got tired of waiting and sent a reminder that, look, we need to finish this DMDL. And that's restarted that process. And that's now been moving forward with another $500,000 worth of field work, extensive modeling ongoing at Division of Water. This is Division of Water scope. This nutrient TMDL is going to change the status quo in the watershed, especially given the condition of Floyd's Fork. So next slide. Today, we're still waiting for the Division of Water to finish the TMDL. It's scheduled currently for public comment second half of next year. Meanwhile, where are we from this regional planning perspective on wastewater capacity? The major permits in Floyd's Fork in Jefferson County are the Cedar Creek facility. It expired August 31st of 2020. MSD made timely application. The state issued a draft permit for that facility to continue its output at 6.5 million gallons a day. And it was aggressively challenged by the Friends of a National Coalition because Cedar Creek's another tiny little stream that's been on the 303D list for a long time. Floyd's Fork, the big wastewater plant at the top of the park, which is just north of I-64. Same story on its permits expiration, and we haven't seen a draft permit out of the state. The MS4 permit for Jefferson County expired in 2022. Same story. Frankfurt, where are they? I heard an awful lot of honorables. We've got the right people on this board to maybe pick up the phone and call Frankfurt and say, look, we're trying to plan as a group on how to grow out here. Get these documents done. Here's why. Back in 2014, I took a look and thought about, all right, on the KIPDA, we're the regional planning documents. We looked at a Salt River wastewater study. It called for 3 alternatives, leaving each entity under themselves, alternative 2, a sub-regional solution, and a regional plan that involved 2 large facilities, one on Floyd's Fork at its present location north of 64, and a plant on the Salt River. We took a look at all the anticipated volumes, including those on Floyd's Fork. We put numbers on it. And that is about as far as this process got. With the understanding out of that, that if the permitting environment for these facilities for wastewater were to change because of a pending nutrient TMDL and things tightened up, that would reset the whole calculus. And we would need to go back and do this study again and look at the cost benefits of trying to provide a higher level of treatment at whatever wastewater facility we're attempting to use. 2014 was the timing on that regional plan. MSD's action plan for Southeast Jefferson County is 2010. So we're 14 years and needing an update there too. It anticipates building out with high additional demand, the entire part of Southeast Jefferson County. That's kind of where the sewer piece is. If some of our judge executives and planning folks that are impacted by this absence of clarity out of Frankfurt could get on the phone, it would be greatly appreciated by all of us as we figure out how to grow. MSD's told Brian, well, if we expand these plants, we can put an additional 40,000 housing units on the ground. Science is pretty clear about the carrying capacity of the zero flow stream flows forward. There's not a lot of room there. In fact, you need to go the other way. Taking a quick look at that. What do we have? 6.5 million gallons a day on the ground at the Floyd's Fork facility. It's designed to be expanded, but that expansion is not in the way. Cedar Creek already experiences wet water flows well above its design capacity of 7.5. That permit is currently being challenged and stalled. It's being hydraulically upgraded to a 9 million gallon a day facility. And this body's considering and has actually worked on a major interceptor, South Floyd's Fork interceptor, that would add a huge amount of load over time to Cedar Creek, a facility whose permits administratively expired, has been challenged in its existing nameplate. Interesting stuff. If you take those growth projections, and the lower horizontal line is where we are today with capacity. The upper horizontal line assumes you could build out increased capacity, which is an assumption. And you look at the demand for sewer and wastewater. You expand them, we're gonna use it all up, and then where do we turn? So now is the time to be looking down the road 10, 20, 30 years and find the 50 or $100 million long term that it takes to get ahead of us. Otherwise, we're gonna hit a brick wall. It's the hard stop, gonna kind of shift topics generally. This whole land use advocacy, rational growth strategy. The group's worked for years. We've hired the best consultants that we can. Brian will tell you, we've written up chapter and verse suggested regs for what that all needs to look like, the conservation plan. But it's a sea change from the way we build. And it's gonna take some vision and some long-term thinking to get Floyd's Fork right. More in a minute. High level, impervious surface, tree cover, using the science that we've got. Resurrecting a 319 grant to do a watershed wide plan that was started and stalled, unfortunately. Getting these diets, TMDL budgets, all right, so what's Floyd's Fork? How much wastewater can it take? I don't see the Floyd's Fork plant going away, but what I do see is needing to manage additional loads. And the last piece where we've been working for years to try to get things briefly. Half the nutrient input from Floyd's Fork is from point sources, wastewater, septic, right? 2% septic, the other half's runoff. So the way we build's got a lot to do with that. The biggest metric, those impervious surface, couple observations, you start seeing severe adverse impacts above 10%. You get to 25%, don't waste your money trying to restore it other than for aesthetics and public safety. And that's where we are in our highly developed watersheds in Jefferson County. Fairgrass Creek, some portions of that watershed are 50 or 60%. The restoration plans for it and Mill Creek are measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And those are to provide safety and aesthetic sorts of things. We'll never get Fairgrass Creek. So it's one graph, depending on the amount of impervious surface. Briefly, 2/3 of the DRO that Brian mentioned is RR. That's one house on 5 acres. And when you look at how that builds out, that's 2, 3, 4, 5% max impervious surface. And our streams that are built out that way are the healthiest left in the Floyd's Fork watershed. Our four runs 45%. The MRDI bonus that's allowed in the DRO, that could get up to 60% impervious. So there are some big squeaky disconnects between best practice, science, and even with what these regs propose, as restricted as they appear to some of them in the development community. We've covered it. The science is clear on this stuff. So what happens if you don't mind the metrics? Get above where you need to be on impervious surface and don't manage stormwater runoff. Well, what happens is you get multi-million-dollar Corps of Engineers restoration projects on Floyd's Fork. Bear with me. The one in the upper right is Long Run Creek. There's a little main stem project called the Walker Project in Fisherville, booming downtown Fisherville, I might add. The last mile of Chenoweth Run, the Chenoweth Run that drains J-Town, the Bluegrass Industrial Park, is scheduled for a complete makeover. And then another stream side project in Bullock County on Glory Road. Future Fund invited the Corps to take a look. Yes, sir, yes, man, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they brought the entire team. And spent a lot of time looking at Floyd's Fork. And their assessments are candid, stark, and confirmation that already on Floyd's Fork, on these limited pieces, we're in $1 million restoration cost mode. So $12.5 million, what's it buy? 50 acres of hardwood plantings, 16 acres of restoration of wetlands on Chenoweth Run, over 1.1 miles of major stream restoration. Long Run Creek today, because of what we've developed up there already, carries 4 times the stormwater runoff it did pre-development. The amount of runoff these developments produce is huge. This core thing's been going on for 5-6 years, and we've got this thing flanged up. Design and engineering kicks in later this year. But the key conclusion is that our stream's been altered irreparably. No passive recovery is expected. So far along there, we're gonna have to get in, intervene, and do something to stop the sediment load and the loss of stream habitat. Anthropogenic core word, human activities have what done it. We can go into these factors, and Brian will tell you, I'll go on for an hour if you don't want to have to talk on what's the chemistry or the causal factors, why do we know what we know. But we've got an impaired ecosystem, and the restoration work's going to help us. Last slide, promise. So really, what's at stake? The health of Floyd's Fork. When you look at our regional planning documents, Plan 2040, the Floyd's Fork DRO, South Floyd's Fork area study, there are paragraph after paragraph of admonition from the consultants that say the health of Floyd's Fork is a living stream is paramount. Maintain and increase the health of that stream. When that language got adopted by Metro, the water quality geeks were wondering, I can do this. What's the science on water? So what I've tried to do today is give you a pretty stark, unvarnished assessment. Where are we? What do we need to do? What's it going to take if we're going to try to keep Floyd's Fork fishable, swimmable through the middle of the parklands? I didn't know until we started looking. It's the #1 tourist attraction. 3 million plus user visits a year. If we don't get the guidance from Franklin, we're going to misappropriate millions of dollars for infrastructure. We're already starting to do that. Look no further than the South Floyd's Fork intersection. How are we going to grow? Ryan's getting told, I got potentially permits for X number of houses. And if TMDL comes in, it's Y number of houses. And if we do anything at the scale we've done historically at R4 or at higher densities, we'll blow out every stream on Floyd's Fork, and we'll end up with another Beargrass Creek. And not $10 million restoration projects, but 100 million. So, man, I thank you for your time. You're an audience I've never had the pleasure to address before. I'm an open book, kind of mouthy. You probably have figured out already, but I'll leave a card. I'll buy you lunch. Gary will tell you John, if you don't know Paul around the corner and you got a few minutes, come. Better yet, you wanna see it, paddle it, touch it, call 'em. I got a stack of cards. I've got a briefcase full of every bit of ammunition you'd ever want to back up anything I've said. And just from a personal perspective, I'm the luckiest kid on the planet. I'm semi-retired, I'm non-essential, my dog rides in my truck, and I take care of your own police sport, right? But what I've also been blessed to do is spend enough time to really get to know and see each of these northwest tributaries expire, lose their biodiversity, get scared out the bedrock as we've done what we've done, building out an influenceable watershed. We're gonna get one shot at it. We don't check this up now, we miss this. My story, stick to it. Thank you for your time.
So the last thing that we have is, we're just curious, we know what kind of development pressure we have in eastern Jefferson County and what we have been kind of seeing throughout the years. What kind of development pressure do you all have near Floyd's Fork in your communities? And so we're just kind of curious to get some feedback about that. How heavily engaged are your residents in regards to protection of Floyd's Fork or similar natural features? And then, what kind of regulations do you all have in place that you all are currently utilizing to help protect, Floyd's Fork and then also other stream corridors? And so that's what we were, from a Louisville standpoint, that's what we were curious about. And so we were hoping to maybe hear a little bit about that from you all today.
So Brian, Bullock County is currently updating their comprehensive plan.
Okay.
I'm part of their steering committee and I just reached out to Charlie who couldn't make it. But I think you all need to come and present this to the steering committee.
Mhm.
Because working in Bullock County watersheds was not important. Planning Commission, Mr. Magruder back there can attest to, that's not something they thought about. So I think you all as a group should probably go out to at least the steering committee and maybe even the planning commission.
Okay.
To let them know what the issues are.
Yeah.
I'll give you
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Charlie's,
you wanna-
yeah, information.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
I can, in Shelby County, of course, you all have seen our development along the western boundary of Shelby and eastern boundary. Jefferson is 5 acre or larger tracts, other than the Persimmon Ridge development that is the most recent development along that Floyd's Fork corridor. Which is almost built out now and completed. Maybe a few lots, larger lots that they have and some smaller lots in there. There was a few years back, MSD was allowed to come out and have a little forum with the community to explain what they could do for western Shelby County. And it wasn't well received by the current magistrates that were on at that time, that they did not want MSD in Shelby County. We do know we have a trunk line that feeds the Pee Wee Valley facility with the women's prison correction facility. But other than that, there's no wastewater treatment allowed in western Shelby County. Our comprehensive plan was last updated, completely updated in 2018, which we did the review in 23 and readopted it. It doesn't change any of the land uses along that side. Everything is rural agricultural, except for the current areas that are got some density and all that. The Persimmon Ridge, the Long Run Road has a couple developments there that are smaller than 5 acre tracts, but they're all older. There's nothing new proposed. As my, job as the director out there, and what we've heard from the citizens, they don't want MSD in Shelby County. We really don't want them in there either, because we know what's gonna happen once they take over. Then all the growth is gonna come. We've had, some of our administration has discussed about possibly reducing our minimum lot size in our agricultural zone from 5 acres down to either, at one time it was 2 acres, and then they would compromise and maybe looking at 3, which would require a completely rewrite of our comprehensive plan. Because our comp plan recommends a minimum lot size of 5 acres. And so, if they decide to do their own not really do their own comprehensive, if the county decides to hire a consultant and come in and rewrite the comprehensive plan and present that, then of course we will have an extensive public participation process to get the public's input, which I think will be pretty much the same as what we're seeing now, which is we want to grow from Shelbyville and Simpsonville outward if we're going to grow, but we don't want to grow too far out. So hopefully that stays. So that's kind of where we are in Shelby County. Up there along Long Run Road, there's a lot of property that is developing. They'd like to come into Shelby County. Some of those developers own land in Shelby County and bought up those farms and would like to come across there with that sewer, but at this point, they don't have the right to come to Shelby County.
Good news for Forest Fork, that regional planning effort. It's gonna be tough in Louisville Metro. To get rid of the concept of we're the whole Davidson County's metro, but we're not. Got Jefferson Memorial Forest, we've got this huge Forest Fork area. That's kind of where the conservation forum, which is yet to be put into regs, but it's on Brian's to-do list. May help us look at how do we preserve some rural character. And a lot of the residents that are out there moved out into the sticks precisely for that reason. They liked it out there that way. So, thank you.
Yeah, I know Jim Urban in Oldham County's on, and they've got part of Floyd's Fork in their area, so if they want to maybe address what they've done.
Well, a couple things, North Fork of Floyd's Fork starts in Oldham County, right near the Henry County line, and we don't really have any necessary controls or anything other than that. The area is not sewered, so it is on septic. There is one subdivision that was done probably a decade ago that actually uses a collection system for individual septic systems, and the lateral lines are in the floodplain. And it seems to be working real well. It's managed by the HOA, and the health department had some concerns about it, but they monitor it regularly. So as it comes into the rest of Oldham County, we have North Fork of Curry's Fork also flows into Floyd's Fork. And collectively as a region, I don't think we have any kind of standard policies regarding the protection of Floyd's Fork. There is a lot in kind of at the headwaters, still a lot of farmland. So 2024, this year, is an update of the comprehensive plan, and we haven't started it yet. It'd be a good opportunity to maybe put in something. I've always thought about changing the way we look at our conservation zoning, which really doesn't necessarily protect creeks, streams, and steep slopes, and actually putting buffers from the center line of the creeks and streams, especially the ones that start in Oldham County, like Harrods Creek and Floyd's Fork. We haven't done that. So there's an opportunity at least to look at enhancing our policies, but there's not an effort to do that necessarily at this point. We do have a Curry's Fork watershed coordinator, used to be in the county engineer's office. Now that person is housed in the Oldham County Conservation District's office, actually a good location for him. And we use grant money to do things like upgrade any septic systems that are in the floodplain area. But that's really it.
All right, thanks, Jim.
As far as Henry County, I didn't even realize we had any of Salt River in it until I started getting emails. I thought, what am I getting these emails for? So we just have a little bit on the one side there, and that's really just ag land. It's not any big subdivisions or anything like that on it.
On the rim of the watershed.
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody else have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, if I may, I'm on Zoom, Scott Travis, kind of like Judge Bates, Spencer County just has just a little section there. And I know it's, I'd say low density, very low density residential farmland a little bit. But just from listening and then an observation that I've put together, I guess my entire life, my whole life, I've driven from Spencer County into Mount Washington, picking up Bardstown Road and going to Louisville. So I remember old Bardstown Road, of course, and the businesses on there and crossing Floyd's Fork and when it's flooded, when it's not. And of course, it always flooded that bottom when you come out of Bullitt County into Jefferson, cross the bridge, that bottom on the right headed north, it always would flood. And of course, they'd raise corn there. And being a farmer myself, I'd watch the crops. They'd get flooded, and some of them did, some of them didn't. But today, that's all filled in with dirt, and there's like 1,000 patio home things built right there. And it's so no longer will it flood. The water's moved over, and I'm just and in listening to the previous speaker, did I pick up right? The big percentage of the water in Floyd's Fork comes from water, out of homes that's been purified, I guess, through the systems. Did I catch that right?
That's exactly right. The numbers were in Fisherville, 624 or whatever data had. So the flow was measured at the gauge, 3 million gallons a day, 3.1. And the Floyd's Fork wastewater treatment plant alone averages 3.5 or so million a day. It's a zero flow stream. Cedar Creek on that far smaller stream averages 5-6 million gallons a day. They're big numbers to flow. And we also are not real happy about that development formally in the floodplain that you're talking about. We've got pictures of water on a 4-inch rain lapping at the edge of the parking lot. So when we get a 6 or an 8, there's going to be some wet cars in that field that is now the townhomes you just mentioned, sir.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody needs a place to live, and we're running out of places to build homes because we still have to raise food to eat, and so forth. But that's the business we're all in. Now, I'm guessing that facility there in Jefferson County that I described with the homes, that all probably goes north into a regional treatment, and the water from those homes does not get into the Floyd's Fork. Would that be correct?
Close. It goes west to the Cedar Creek facility and then hits Cedar Creek, which hits Floyd's Fork above the Salt River. So yeah,
okay.
That wastewater load, a portion of the wastewater load from the retired J-Town facility have all been directed to Cedar Creek. There's a major interceptor proposed for the middle portion of Floyd's Fork, north of where you're talking about, sir, that would put additional load on Cedar Creek. Well, that Cedar Creek facility's picked up a lot of load in the last 10 years.
But it's downstream a lot, correct?
That wastewater load hits on the lower end of Floyd's Fork, that's right. The Floyd's Fork wastewater plant is just above I-64, essentially at the top of the park. And those are the two big facilities in Floyd's Fork watershed left.
Yeah. And I guess I don't have complaints. I just have observations and curiosities. As this Floyd's Fork plan has been going on for years. I know I've attended some of the meetings about it in the past 15 years, where I know I was at one meeting and there were some folks from Atlanta, I guess from the EPA that did a community thing one night. But I've attended a few of them over the years just on behalf of the farmers that live in the area. But, just an observation going forward. I mean, we have to have smart growth. We've got to protect our streams. We got to minimize expense to the residents, because the residents that need the housing can't afford the housing if you make it too expensive to afford. So, I know there's a balance, and we've all got a job to do, but it's not easy. But, mostly, again, I'm trying to learn from this process as to how, how we can perfect it better in the future. But thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Is there anybody else?
John Hudson, I think we need to, as a planning development authority, we really need to think about the long-term solution to this. Number one issue I've got in my district with about 45,000 people, as they say, too many houses, too much development, you're overwhelming us with traffic and, destroying the street. But I also have tremendous pressure from the commercial community saying we need to build for 30,000 units of affordable housing short. And we know that we cannot satisfy those two things without killing the fourth. We probably ended up with a $1 billion consent decree once the federal EPA figures out what we've done here, try to restore that stream. So I think we're kind of on a suicide mission right now. And the only solution that I am aware of is what Jeff mentioned, the 2014 multi-county Salt River sewage plant, which I think the legislature authorized the formation of 13, 14, something like that. Never acted on, never funded, but we could do it. We could be pursuing federal grants and we could take all this wastewater and pipe it down to a big facility that processes it right by the Salt River, literally Ohio, and not have a TMDL problem. And basically pump the poop down the river. Instead of dropping it into our creek. And I think if this body doesn't take some action on that regionally, it's not gonna happen. And I think the legislature would be supportive of doing something, but my colleagues that are in rural counties, they're like, that's like a Louisville problem, you guys figure it out, but we can't solve the problem in Jefferson County. It's gonna have to be a multi-county solution that processes the sewage down closer to Fort Knox. So that's what I would encourage KIP to take on is that regional approach. Let's use the law that's already in place, get something going, we'll get some federal grants and look at it as an opportunity cost to do that sewage treatment plant instead of spending what's going to be hundreds of millions or $1 billion in EPA cleanup type money and stream mitigation down the road, because it's coming. I mean, once somebody realizes what we're about to do to the stream, people are going to be furious at the regulatory level. And we've got to fix this. And, I lived near the fort for the last 40 years, and I don't want to see the area I live in destroyed. So.
I mean, for census scale, the Parklands was about $150 million investment. 3.5 million user visits a year now. So it's become an economic engine unto itself. And what that's done, particularly in the northeast portion of the county where sewers are available, is driven an explosion of single family and multi-family housing. If you're interested and want to take a little deeper dive on that, the graphs on the charts are on Louisville, keepyourfork.org. Or I can get you any of that information. But what we saw was a steady, small number of Floyd's Fork DRO development applications, mostly single family, which is why these folks made a tier 1 review. You didn't need to bother the planning commission with that stuff. But now, post development of the Parklands, there's a huge and a lot of speculation. Folks jumping into areas where they think sewers might be.
Right. Got what, 6,000 houses on the beach that are approved but not built. Crazy. And there's no allowable sewage capacity for that.
And the stormwater piece, the one thing we didn't cover in the regulation reviews is there were several things that were, I think, really groundbreaking in the Floyd's Fork DRO regulations. One is we rewrote the stormwater regulation for first flush detention and doubled that, where we were catching more stormwater. We also made provision that defaulted in that regulation back to the MSD design manual. And they've got a chapter 18 on how do you deal with stormwater. It's been 30 years since we've been able to tweak the DRO regs. MSD can tweak their regs a lot quicker in chapter 18 and have that impact be whatever best practice is looking down the road. We've allowed for restoration activities, buffer opportunities. Where we've missed the mark broadly is impervious surface and tree canopy. So that piece was compromised, and politics is like watching sausage being made, right? We got to where we got, and daggone near killed us because it's what? Dozens of people, but that was the best effort we could put on the table.
Well, I just wanted to ask Alicia, Ryan, or Barrett is what, as this committee, as council, what would you recommend? Or do you want to come back?
Probably a letter to the legislators to revisit the 2014
That language, opened it up, and I know that I helped facilitate that at the time, Greg Heitzman with MSD, when it was with MSD, we put that out for bid. Strainer Associates did that 2014 study for the Salt River, but that was kind of a pay to play, so, the communities that participated, chipped in to pay for that study. It was a nominal amount, so it wasn't that detailed, but came up with those three solutions. So again, I think at the time it was that 800-pound gorilla of MSD. I think a lot of people were at the table just because they wanted to push back on what they thought might be coming. So I think trying to overcome that hurdle of MSD is gonna be a big obstacle, especially out in our, communities outside of Jefferson County.
We've got super popular right now. So if you get some public support for.
Couple of observations. Since the 2014 study, there've been some stabs at regionalization. There's an interlocal between Oldham County and MSD for portions of their service area. There's an interlocal between MSD and Bullitt County. So whether that whole picture is where it's at, when you take a look at the relative threat to the stream posed by what your land use code on that fringe of the watershed is, it's pretty small. So it's the other pieces of the puzzle. Broadly too, the Oldham County gentleman mentioned the fact there's a Curry's Fork 319 restoration grant in place. And I think EPA and the Division of Water would be willing to, on a smaller sub-watershed basis, rather than tackle all of Floyd's Fork, assign those grant monies and put a project coordinator on the ground to do what the Curry's folks have been doing and doing a good job of in that watershed. So those are opportunities that are out there. We can catalyze that interest in those funds. One other observation, over the years, Frank, the Friends Future Fund have kind of had an interesting roller coaster ride with MSD. We've signed a partnership agreement, an interlocal that says, look, we're all interested in getting these numbers out of Frankfurt in terms of how can we grow, what are the permit limits, so. And they've done a good job getting rid of package plants and doing the things they've needed to do to help what's work along the way. They applied for their permit renewals at Cedar Creek and Floyd's Fork and the MS4 or stormwater permit in a timely fashion. Backlogs, Frank. And it's gonna take some political will to get this stuff pushed through the system.
The Frankfurt Executive Branch.
Thank you.
Right.
Quite frankly, exactly.
I can push it with.
That's
I
fine.
can work with it.
I was gonna say, Ryan, obviously at 1:30, our next region meeting, the Regional Water Management Council, I think this is a really good discussion for them to see if there is still that appetite to revisit that regional study and see if also with more funding available.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to facilitate that conversation. I've been our regional water management coordinator for 9 years now, and this is would be a huge focus for that. And I know the 319 grants are available, and I know Becca Truman with the North Curry's Fork did an exceptional job. I work with her in her new capacity with the Quantified Ventures now. There's also grant money for that. So yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity for us to have you come or have another discussion. And with the Regional Water Management Council meeting, we are obviously already have agenda set for today, so we couldn't fit in today's meeting, but I would love to have you all in October. We have a quarter meeting. It's every quarter to January, April, July, and October. So you want to, have this discussion in October or January, we can definitely do that. And I think with the grant, I think your approach of having a, kind of having phases or looking at, the different portions of the stream to get the 319 grant and have some kind of, initiation of it. So there's something in the works that could, speak volumes of the people who care.
Back in the Division of Water, it makes sense once we get the restoration work on the ground in Chenoweth and Run, in the long run with the Corps. That would make sense to come in. To your point earlier, MSD has committed to take a fresh look at this regionalization solution. It's what the cabinet wants ultimately is a regional solution. So it may not be the whole enchilada, but we could revisit that, what makes sense. If anything, today's though.
I spoke to Congressman Guthrie's office about this too. He's got a good part of this strategy. I think we're gonna be.
Sure.
Our grant application.
And then like, somebody sent a letter to.
I'd like to speak up to make one point. Jeff and I have been friends and adversaries both over the years. My brother and I own an island, 3/4 of Floyd's Fork from the Bells Mill Bridge, starting back up toward the Parklands. We own 3/8 of a mile of Cedar Creek, below Girl Scout camp. you've got two watersheds that will come with the influence of those two creeks come together, so if you're moving stuff, the interceptor line from one watershed to the other watershed, it still ends up back in the same watershed. And, we're not looking to do any development on what we're doing or anything else, but the watershed needs to be preserved as well as it can be. With thought process on further upstream than Oldham County and here, than what's fifth in Bullitt County. It all comes out the pipe down there.
Can I add something here, if you don't mind? It's off the subject of water quality and MSD, but several years ago through the Building Industry Association and using what was then Red Wing, now RES, we tried to put together an effort to keep bat habitat money in the region and create a bat habitat bank. And the whole idea was then to use that money locally to preserve corridors, especially the Floyd's Fork and Salt River watershed corridor, in terms of an overall environment. So that like 21st Century Parks did in preserving a lot of land in the Floyd's Fork corridor, extend that all the way up in Oldham County or wherever the reaches are of those creeks and streams, because that is also going to preserve water quality. If you maintain especially buffers and vegetative cover over the creeks and streams, the water quality is better, the aquatic life is better. And I think that this discussion needs to include something like that on whether or not we can expand the thinking about how we're looking at Floyd's Fork to a corridor preservation plan. So I just wanted to kind of put that on the table at this point.
All right, thank you, Jim. All right, at this time, we're now past our 1 hour meeting time, and so not that, this has been great discussion, great presentation, valuable information to this whole council to understand what's going on with this major tributary that runs through eastern Jefferson County that touches many of the other regional counties. Brian, I don't know, did that kind of help you all with some of the question you had there?
No, absolutely not. We just,
Some of
again,
our-
want to kind of spur a conversation and appreciate everybody, again, listening to us today and giving us feedback. So this is great.
Okay, now, with that said, and Jeff, thank you and your organization, all that for the information you provided, and I hope you continue to be involved in every community that has a Floyd's Fork running through it. Because it's definitely something we will need in Shelby County as we look at growth and development and pressures from Jefferson County coming in Shelby, so. Appreciate that.
We fall into things, and I fell into this 40 century plus ago. But when you drive through the parklands today and you take a look, it's Broadway smiles, and it's widely used, and widely loved. And that model started with a down zoning on the DRO, where Dr. Henry went in and started buying land, and then the richest guy in town stepped up. David Jones Senior at Humana, and Louisville got together and did it. And over that 25 plus years, it'd be a terrible thing for us to lose. It's a huge marketing plus for Louisville, it's a lifestyle thing. And to the extent we can understand it's a watershed and put these pieces together, we'll have a better shot.
Yes,
Thank you.
no, thank you. And so, with that said, what is the pleasure of the council at this time in regards to, we've heard some about supporting a letter to be sent and all that. I would almost recommend that we ask our KIPTA staff, KIPTA agency to bring back a recommendation to us at our next regular meeting. So we can, and as well as with the Water Resource Council and everything, and we all get back together and then come up with a collaborative idea or support letter.
So we're all on the same
So
page.
we're on the same page and get sent on.
It probably wouldn't be in October because we would present it to the Regional Water Council in October.
Okay.
So then
But you
we'll-
could at least be bringing us some information at our next council
yes.
meeting, that we're moving towards this maybe for then our
okay.
next quarterly or whatever, unless we need a special call meeting, so.
We could do through the council and also to our full board to get the sign off from yourself or chair of the Regional Water Management Council and our full board.
Does that sound like a good idea to the council?
Yes.
All right, not hearing any objections, then we'll direct staff then to go ahead and look at that and bring in some recommendations and some information at our next regional planning council meeting. And then we'll continue to work towards this support document that will go off to, the state of Franklin. All right. Appreciate everybody today for their time on that. I know we have some other items on our agenda and staff, I know we got a 1:30 meeting that starts in here.
Yeah, we can-
So we need to really
We
kind
kind
of,
of breeze through these.
yeah, let's read through. If you have some major updates as we go through this agenda, please bring those to light, but let's just kind of keep it light so we can, move through this and adjourn in a fashionable time so they can have the next meeting in here. So the next item was some KIPTA updates, and do you all have some updates for us that need to be brought to the council's attention?
Nothing really major on my end. I will just say briefly, for my part, my responsibilities at KIPTA are evolving a little bit, so I'm now taking over GIS mapping duties for Anne Marie Sacra, who's recently left. So going forward, I will be in charge of mapping water and wastewater infrastructure for our region. So proposed and existing projects, and kind of working a little bit more with Division Water and Gay in that capacity, and helping Justin out a little bit more. So that is everything I have for my part though.
Okay, anybody else from the staff have anything?
KIPTA has been awarded a $1.5 million Brownfields Coalition Assessment Grant. This is the first time we've done it as an applicant for KIPTA, so this will include all of our Kentucky counties plus the 2 counties in Indiana, so we're excited about that. We worked with Shelbyville Main Street, thanks to Ryan, City of Shepherdsville and Trimble County to have some sites to put in our application. But once I think we're gonna do a request for bid qualifications here soon. Once we have a consultant on staff, then we'll be reaching out to each of our counties to, I think we have 30 assessments that we want that can be completed for brownfields. So we're very excited about that. And then Jennifer also got awarded for Trimble County. Was it Hardy Creek? Was that the
Yeah.
319 watershed?
Yes, a partial award, which we don't know the actual amount of yet for the Hardy Creek Kentucky River watershed. I think the 319 watershed planning grant.
So we're happy to work with our other communities if they would like one as well.
All right.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, thank you all. All right, so our next item on the agenda is our county quarterly updates. Let's try to breeze through this. If you have something major to bring up that's happening or whatever, do so, but if not, let's try to move it forward so we can adjourn in time. Jim, since you're online right there, and Ryan, anything from Oldham County?
Just real quickly, many of you know, I'm gonna be retiring soon. Ryan Fisher, who's sitting next to me, has been selected as the Director of Planning and Development Services when I do retire, so he'll be participating in these and other KIPTA activities. So I don't know if Ryan has anything to say, but.
Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, welcome Ryan, and see you later, Jim. No. No, it's been good working with you, Jim. When is your date for retirement?
I'm going to join the ranks of David Burton in retirement. But what I do want to say is we do have 2 planning positions open. In the meantime, our assistant director, Brian, also has submitted his resignation and he's moving on as of Friday. So we have a assistant director and a planner position available. Reach out to anybody you know that might be interested. Any resources that you have, please let us know so that we can locate somebody. We've got just a couple of short months to fill those positions and get Ryan supported.
All right, thank you, guys. Brian, do you have anything else to add for Little Metro?
I'll just say medical cannabis, if you're not dealing with it, start dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Our Metro Council, we're working on it. I got another hearing next Tuesday to discuss what we're gonna do in Louisville, but yeah, a lot of.
What's
action
it
there.
looking like? Are you gonna allow it in business?
Well, the initial draft was for dispensaries, conditional use permit in C2 and C3 districts, so more intense commercial districts. And then for the other uses, and then also permitted in industrial districts. So primarily looking at the industrial districts. But the dispensaries, C1 and C2, we're guaranteed 2 with the lottery this time. And so we've got plenty of available land out there if Metro Council passes what we recommended. But we'll have a better idea of what we'll have in place after next
Do you
Tuesday.
think you'll have any pushback because it's considered a pharmacy? And it's gonna operate as a pharmacy that is not allowed in any type of where pharmacies are allowed?
That's how Metro Council's leaning, because we did have additional setback requirements beyond the 1,000 foot that the state had for schools and daycares. We included parks, we included, recognized open spaces, a couple other things. And so I think that's the pushback that we're getting from Metro Council. So if I had to guess, they're gonna take away those additional buffering requirements there. I don't know if they're gonna take away the conditional use permit requirement. I haven't really heard a lot of chatter about that or not, but again, I'll know more next Tuesday. Yeah,
Is that ordinance or whatever is proposed available?
yes, it is. Yeah,
It's on the website?
yeah, it is. We
Okay.
go to,
Yeah, I'd like to see.
I'll send you what we have. Yeah.
Will you send it to me so I could send it to everybody?
Just as a quick note on that, I know the city of Shelbyville is, their city council's discussing this and deciding what they wanna do. You know, everybody, I think, is opted in, but if you wanna opt out, you have to pass an ordinance to opt out or a resolution or something, so.
Right.
I know they haven't fully decided. I haven't heard anything from Shelby County Fiscal Court. And I know the city of Simpsonville, hasn't made their decision either, and I think they're gonna start looking into it as well, so. Wade, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem.
Judge Osborne, do you have anything from Trimble County?
No, sir, not right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Judge Travis?
Yeah, on the medical cannabis, my court voted that we're open for business. We're open for dispensaries. We're open for growers. I'm satisfied enough that the regulations the state has put together, we'll keep it in check enough. And I'm sure it'll be a learn as we go process, but my court actually voted to opt in. So again, we're open for business. We'll make it work, and we'll see what we do on the other side. But we're open on medical cannabis.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Judge Travis, I saw a very detailed article in the Courier Journal today about the issue you all are facing with Shelby County along the line.
You look nice on that front page.
Well, thank you. I did get me a copy and check it out, and they did a nice job of representing what I witnessed. We spent an afternoon. The two folks above my picture, we actually spent an hour or two or hour and a half in their kitchen with their neighbors, having conversations, but it was represented quite well. Everything that went on, we are very hopeful that we can have a positive outcome. I want to protect the people that thought they were in Spencer County, and hopefully we can keep them in Spencer County. But thanks, Jarrett.
Thank you, guys. Judge Bates, Henry County?
Yes, sir. We voted to put the medical cannabis on the ballot, so we'll wait until November to decide what we have to do with that, and we'll be working with all the things behind the scenes to get ready if it's voted in, and as far as the growth, we got steady planning and zoning, staying busy with houses and that kind of thing coming in. We got some good interest on some property in Campbellsburg of a big bid, a $50 million business coming in, so hopefully that'll go through. But other than that, everything's be smooth.
All right, thank you. Real quick on Shelby County. Main thing that deals with the Regional Planning Council is the city of Simpsonville has completed their draft of their completely rewrote zoning ordinance, as well as a whole new zoning map. And so they've sent that to the Planning Commission for our public hearing and recommendation back to them, and that will take place at our August Planning Commission meeting. And then the city will have it back for them to decide if they're gonna adopt it and pass it with an ordinance. So that's been about well over a year and a half process with the comprehensive plan that was done for the city, as well as now the ordinance work with the zoning side of it, so, we're starting to see the end of that project, so that's nice, and I think it'd be a good ordinance, the ordinance has been completely redrawn up, all new zone classifications, everything, so I think it's gonna be good for the city for future as they grow and directing people how they wanna grow, so, I think it's gonna be something good. But other than that, like I said, I already commented on the medical marijuana stuff and all that, so, if there's no other county updates, I think we've touched on everybody that was here. We'll move on then I think we have other business. Is there any other business? None? Okay. We do have public comment period we have to ask. At this point, if anybody from the public would like to address the council, this is your opportunity. Seeing nobody come forward, we'll move on. Our next item will be the adjournment, but first of all, thank you to everybody that attended today and provided their input and information. I think it's been a great meeting. It's probably one of the most participated meetings that we've had in a long time, and I think thank you, Brian and Little Metro, for the work on the Floyd's Fork area. Friends of Floyd's Fork and all that you've done and bringing it to our attention so we can now look at this and how we want to move forward as a council. So at this point though, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, and we have a second, Mr. Davis and Judge Bates. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Almost
Good job.
did.
Yeah.